Welcome to the deep dive, and specifically to Research Bites. This is your quick way, to chew over some big ideas from education evidence. If you're a teacher, maybe a school leader, or just really committed to professional growth in Bangladesh, well, this deep dive is definitely for you. Our whole mission here is simple. Take one important piece of research and break it down, make it clear, classroom ready, small bites of big evidence, basically, tools you can hopefully use straight away. So today we're zoning in on something really vital. It's the connection between teacher collaboration and the role, sometimes a pretty restrictive role of school leadership. We're looking specifically at secondary schools in Bangladesh using a significant qualitative study from 2025 that gives us a real feel for the ground level challenges.
That's right. And this study, it really focused geographically on the Dhaka district. They did these in-depth, semi-structured interviews, 6 secondary teachers, and importantly, they got a mix. Public schools, private, even the revenue high schools. The key thing about the method was looking at current collaboration practices, but through the lens of what's called transformational leadership.
Okay.
And, let's just put the core finding right out there because it really sets the scene. The study found a pretty stark scarcity of teachers' collaborative functions, just not happening much. And that was tied directly to, insignificant leadership support. The researcher actually talks about this orthodoxy of leadership kind of holding things back.
That phrase, orthodoxy of leadership, wow, that sounds heavy, like a really fixed mindset, maybe built on hierarchy.
Exactly. It suggests a deeply ingrained traditional approach.
So our goal then, for you listening, is to unpack that, to look at the constraints you might be facing every single day. Maybe it's lack of time, maybe lack of trust, and figure out what needs to shift, both for you individually and maybe at the institutional level too. Okay, so let's start with the ideal. What should collaboration look like versus what this study actually found?
Well, globally, we know collaboration is just essential, isn't it?
Yeah.
When teachers work together in what people call professional learning communities, or PLCs, it's not just, a nice extra. It genuinely improves how the school functions, boosts teaching skills, and ultimately it helps students succeed more. It really drives improvement.
It's the engine, really.
Right. So to see what was actually going on in these Dhaka schools, the study used a framework, 4 conceptual forms of collaboration. Think of it like a scale, from casual chats to really deep professional work.
Okay, what are they?
So at the sort of less intense end, you've got, number 1, storytelling and scanning for ideas. Just, casual chats in the staff room, sharing experiences. And number 2, aid and assistance. Helping each other out, giving advice, often when a problem comes up. Reactive, mostly.
Right. Basic support.
Exactly. And then you move into the stuff that needs more real professional commitment. Number 3 is sharing methods and materials. So maybe planning units together or sharing resources that worked well. Moderate interdependence, they call it. And the 4th, the highest level, is joint work. This is deep stuff. Critical inquiry, watching each other teach, reflecting together, all aimed at continuous improvement, high interdependence.
Okay, so that's the ideal spectrum. And this is where it gets really interesting, maybe confirming what many of you listening already feel. What the research found about these 4 types in Bangladesh secondary schools was?
Well, they were generally limited, especially those higher levels. Very limited. The study basically diagnosed that collaboration is often stuck at levels 1 and 2. That deeper sharing and joint work, often missing.
And you see the constraints straight away with time, don't you? There was that quote from Teacher 1.
Ah, yes. Yeah. It perfectly captured it. Teacher 1 said, the actual scenario of our schools is that from morning to afternoon, we take classes ceaselessly without rest. Our free time is very limited.
Ceaselessly. Wow. So if your free time is that squeezed, staff room chat naturally defaults to, quick personal updates, maybe some gossip.
Exactly. Serious professional talk about teaching strategies or student issues. It feels like a luxury you just don't have time for.
So that lack of structured time, it just suffocates the potential for deeper collaboration right from the start.
And that leads straight into the next, finding this inadequate mutual help, and a concept the research highlighted called autonomous isolation.
Autonomous isolation. That sounds like teachers choosing to work alone.
Well, yes and no. It's not always by preference. Often it's like by necessity, or maybe even a defense mechanism. Teachers often end up working individually, and that mutual aid, it mostly happens reactively. Like, okay, a new curriculum just landed, got to figure this out.
Right, forced collaboration almost.
Kind of. Or maybe you seek out a colleague who just got back from some training because you need their specific input. It's not proactive or planned.
And this is where it gets tricky, isn't it? The cultural stuff, the attitudes. The research talked about an ego factor.
Yes, that came through quite strongly. Some junior teachers felt they just couldn't push for collaboration because, well, senior colleagues feel quite efficient, as one put it.
Meaning the senior teachers felt they didn't need help or saw asking for collaboration as a critique.
Potentially, yes. Or they just felt suggesting joint work implied their own methods weren't good enough. It's sensitive.
And worse, sometimes enthusiastic teachers trying to collaborate were actually discouraged.
Yeah, there were instances where trying to start something collaborative led to being kind of pushed aside, or maybe even subtly undermined by others.
That just destroys psychological safety, doesn't it? Why would you risk sharing your ideas or vulnerabilities if you might get shot down?
Exactly. So you retreat into that isolation.
Okay, so we've got this like triple whammy working against collaboration, excessive workload squeezing time, a culture of autonomous isolation becoming the norm, and these really difficult attitudinal problems, ego, defensiveness, stopping trust from building.
The whole system seems almost designed against it.
Did they find any sharing of materials or joint work?
Some, but very limited. Like
Yeah.
sharing materials might happen around exam time because they have to work together on question papers or the syllabus. It's structurally forced.
But day-to-day stuff, sharing lesson notes, planning together, observing each other teach.
Generally, no. Not common practice according to these interviews.
Okay, so if time and attitude are problems at the teacher level, we need to look higher up. What's the leadership doing or not doing? Let's shift to that second research question. How do school leaders approach teacher collaboration? And the study measured this against transformational leadership ideas, right? Shared vision, teamwork, support.
Correct. And what they found, well, it was mostly a stark contrast to those transformational ideals. The default mode was often authoritarian, very traditional. It's possibly a legacy from the colonial past, that kind of top-down instruction model.
So what did that look like in terms of actual support for collaboration?
Well, most teachers didn't feel their headmaster was a colleague. Teacher one again, they said the headmaster was a boss, not my colleague.
Boss, not colleague. That says a lot.
It does. It implies a lack of understanding, perhaps, from the leader about why collaboration is actually vital for improving teaching, not just some admin task.
And that disconnect, it's amplified by the lack of real instructional feedback, isn't it? Leaders not really visiting classes.
That came up frequently.
Yeah?
Leaders seldom observed teaching or offered pedagogical advice. And worryingly,
Yes.
there was that instance mentioned where a leader apparently takes information about teachers from students
Yeah.
instead of, observing or talking to the teacher directly.
Oh, wow. That's incredibly damaging to trust, surely.
Absolutely. It shifts the dynamic from support to surveillance.
Yeah.
If you think you're being judged based on hearsay from students, you're definitely not going to feel safe trying new collaborative things that involve risk.
Never. And what about shared vision? Staff meetings?
Often just formalities, according to the participants. Decisions came from the top down. Teacher 6 had that really telling quote.
Remind me.
It just said, boss is right.
Boss is right. Yeah. That just shuts down any real input, doesn't it? Why bother offering an opinion if the decision's already made? Total demotivation.
Precisely. And then you have the political and structural complexities layered on top.
Right. The study mentioned some pretty divisive tactics.
Yes, things like heads using a divide and conquer strategy or a check and balance policy.
Yeah.
Basically playing teachers off against each other, maybe through favoritism or financial perks.
Actively preventing collaboration by fostering competition and distrust. That's quite something.
It makes building any kind of collaborative culture almost impossible. And then there's the issue of power structures.
Like politically appointed leaders.
Yeah, leaders whose primary allegiance might be to external political figures or who feel more accountable to the governing body than to their own teaching staff. This can really limit their ability or even their willingness to make decisions that genuinely support the teachers inside the school.
So the big picture on leadership seems pretty bleak in these cases. The actions just didn't line up with that transformational model, creating a culture that, well, it actively resisted building those professional learning communities.
That was the overall finding, yes.
Okay, this is starting to sound a bit overwhelming, like the whole system is stuck, but
Yeah.
let's not get bogged down. Let's focus on the practical. Were there any bright spots, any aha moments in the research? You mentioned 2 teachers, teacher 3 and teacher 5, had positive experiences. What did that look like?
Thankfully, yes. It wasn't all negative. These 2 cases really do shine a light on what is possible. They show genuine transformational leadership managing to overcome those obstacles we just talked about. They really provide a kind of blueprint for what works, even within the challenging Bangladesh secondary school context.
Okay, good. Let's focus on that. For everyone listening, these are the kinds of leadership behaviors you could advocate for, or maybe even try to emulate yourselves. Whatever your role, what were they?
Well, first, instructional support was key. The headmistress in one case wasn't just managing schedules, she actually observed classes, especially new teachers, and gave real constructive feedback on teaching. And crucially, she actively encouraged experienced teachers to share what they knew with the novices, made peer learning an expected, supported thing.
That's huge, not just leaving it to chance. What else?
Second, fostering collaboration wasn't accidental. It was designed. Teacher 5 mentioned their head teacher set up formal clubs, science club, math club, language club, and the key was teachers and students were required to work together in these clubs, and the leader actively monitored them, showing this joint work was important, part of the school's real mission.
So making it structured and valued, not just an add-on if you have time, makes sense.
Third was the systematic dissemination of training. This leader made it a point to instruct teachers who went on external courses to then run workshops back at school, share the knowledge.
Spreading the learning. Smart. Stops that knowledge getting stuck with just one person.
Exactly. It combats that siloing effect.
And the fourth point, probably the foundation for all of this.
Absolutely fundamental, democratic accountability. This leader, according to the teachers, was really committed to making the school a role model. They were described as being equal to all teachers, transparent, and making sure everyone felt genuinely welcome to voice opinions in meetings.
That feeling of safety, of being heard, that dissolves the ego issues and the need for isolation, doesn't
It's
it?
a bedrock. It creates the trust needed for everything else.
So what's fascinating here then is seeing how transformational leadership isn't magic. It directly builds those collectivistic beliefs.
Exactly. These positive examples show it clearly. When leaders set clear goals for teaching, provide real organizational support, and, crucially, act democratically to build trust, collaboration isn't just possible, it starts to flourish naturally.
It replaces that reactive, top-down culture with something much more dynamic, focused on continuous improvement together.
That's the potential.
Okay. So bringing this all together for you, the teacher or the leader listening in Bangladesh,
Yep.
what does this mean for actually moving things forward, getting past this limited reality? The research had some clear recommendations, right?
It did. Essentially, reform needs to happen on two main fronts. First, at the policy level. We need to get collaboration properly embedded in training, both in-service for current teachers and leaders and pre-service for those entering the profession. And this training can't just be about management skills. It needs to explicitly tackle attitudes, challenge that professional ego, the tendency towards isolation, and actually develop collaborative skills.
So changing mindsets and building practical skills through policy and training, what's the second level?
That's the institutional level.
Yeah.
Inside the schools themselves. Leaders really need to consciously shift away from those top-down authoritarian habits that prop up the orthodoxy. They need to actively design planned, structured opportunities for collaboration, things like peer observation, joint lesson planning, monitoring those clubs. It needs to be built into the daily schedule.
Make it part of the job, expected and accounted for, not just a nice to have if there's a spare moment.
Exactly. It can't be a casual afterthought anymore. Leaders need to move from just managing routines to actively facilitating teacher learning and collective problem solving, become intellectual stimulators.
Okay. So policy changes and institutional changes led by transformed leadership. That brings us to our final thought. Something provocative for you to take away and think about. The study makes this really important point near the end. We focus a lot on the head teacher, the official leader, but it says not only the school head, but also teachers are the leaders of their respective classroom platforms.
Leadership isn't just positional.
Right. So if transformational leadership is fundamentally about inspiring people, about exceeding expectations, how can you, whatever your formal title, apply these ideas right now? How can you start to motivate and intellectually stimulate the students, yes, but also the colleagues you work with every single day? Maybe starting small right there inside your own classroom platform to push for more structure, more collaboration in your immediate sphere.
It's a powerful thought. Change can start anywhere.
Absolutely. We really encourage you to take these insights, chew them over, and see how you might turn your own corner of the school into more of a beacon for professional collaboration.